First of all, let me thank CSE for organizing this and also inviting us. And I request some of you seem to be dozing off because of the lunch. So I invite your attention and request your, because this agriculture, is our food. So therefore, we really need to understand and pay little attention. Then it deserves some attention. So first of all, let me tell you why this is so important, because every sector is important, transportation, energy and all. But agriculture is most important because of the following reasons. As you can see from this side, that it's a very large country, almost like many countries of Europe together makes one India. And then we have very, very diverse seasons. We have Rabi, Kharif, summer, so many seasons. Round the year we keep on growing crops in our country. Then we have a close link between climate and the water resources, because the so-called irrigated area in our country is also dependent on rain, barring Ganga and Brahmaputra, which are somewhat fed by snow. If you go to US, most of the rivers are actually snow-fed. I mean, the snow melts in Canada and the Mississippi flows. They don't bother about rain. But in India, it is not like that. Unless the Western Ghats are drenched, your Krishna, Godavari just don't flow. So therefore, our so-called irrigated area is also actually rain-fed. That is what we must understand. That's very, very critical compared to many other countries, So then, of course, the other things like, in spite of all our irrigation, 2/3 of the area, that is about 60%, is still depending on rainfall. Very risky and very uncertain. Then this is, since I was told that a lot of people from the South Asian countries are attending this seminar, I just put this slide for you, that what is exactly the current scenario of climate change in different parts of this region. I mean, you can take a printout, or maybe they said you can. So these letters are small. You don't need to make an attempt. But broadly seeing, in most of these countries, the temperature is ranging anywhere between 0.5 to 0.7 degrees in the last 100 years or so. And rainfall, I mean, in general, we are not seeing much of a trend except a small increase in summer monsoon, as our colleague just now said. But you will see the impacts are very large, like in most of the cases, yield reductions on crops, livestock, a lot of human damage of habitations and all. So broadly, entire South Asia shares a kind of negative impact of climate change. There is hardly any very, very positive, like in Western, in some of the North Europe and all, we see some positive gains of climate change. Climate change also has some positive gains in some of the countries of Scandinavian countries, Russia and all, because the temperature rise will allow them to grow new crops which they were not able to grow earlier. That is one important thing. Climate change doesn't mean always negative. There are some countries who are going to get positive. But in this region, broadly, we don't have that kind of opportunities because of the region. But let me also tell you, let me also not give you a very negative picture that all is not, lost. If you look at our Indian agriculture performance over the last 30-40 years, you will see that in the past, when there was a drought, when there is deficit rainfall, our food production used to sharply decline. Look at this graph, in the last 2009 drought, the rainfall declined by as much as 23%, but the food production declined only by 7% compared to the previous year. Whereas in 2002, the rainfall declined by about 17%, food production declined by 19%. So we are to some extent able to insulate our agriculture to this climate variability. Of course, it could be due to our logistics supporting, or all our contingency plans and the government support in time, providing inputs and all, agro advisory, so many things. The credit could go to anyone, but broadly, and also the main reason is our contribution from Rabi is now increasing. And Rabi is somewhat more insulated from the monsoon variation compared to the Kharif, So that is one reason. So broadly, whatever may be the reason, that we are, moving towards somewhat insulation to the climate variability of Indian agriculture as a whole. I am not sure about other countries in the South Asian region, but in India, at least, this is certain. Then I just like to, because my colleague explained to you in a very detail, but I would like to tell you broadly what is happening to the Indian monsoon, especially the summer monsoon. As he said, all over India, there is no change, but some regions in central and southern part, like Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and eastern Madhya Pradesh, they are actually beginning to receive less rainfall. This is a 100-year data. It's not a model prediction, as he told, but this is an actual data of the last 100 years. So this is somewhat a significant observation. Whereas the regions in Western India, some areas in Jammu Kashmir, and they are actually receiving more rainfall. So this is almost a sort of, a trend which has been observed. So it is all over India. If you look at, average Indian rainfall, it is misleading. So it might look, they'll change, but there are some regions which are likely to, which are at least receiving less rainfall. And this is perhaps a part of the trend in 2009, 6, 10. We have been continuously seeing droughts in Jharkhand, Bihar, and especially in Chhattisgarh. You will be surprised. The average rainfall in Chhattisgarh has almost declined from around 1,200 to about 800 now. In the last decade, continuously, we are receiving low rainfall in Chhattisgarh. Although it's still, many meteorologists may not agree it is a significant trend, but people in fact are feeling the pinch of it, and then the forests are declining and the rice yields are getting less stable and all that. Now, but as far as temperature is concerned, there is a much more clarity. Temperature, if you see, India as a whole, in the last 100 years, there has been an increase of 0.67 degrees temperature. But surprisingly, this 0.67, out of this 0.67, 0.4 has increased only in the last 20 years. So this is the very significant point. That means the warming is in the last last two decades. I mean, the kind of automobile revolution we are seeing in our country, the kind of, the industrialization, whatever it is. So the warming is definitely is accelerating. That's what he was telling by 2050, 2070, we are going to have a 3 degree. And many people ask, many in such seminars, you see, sometimes we in Rajasthan, we are used to have a 40 degrees, but sometimes it goes to 46. Nothing happens to us. So why you are talking about 1 degree rise? Actually, this is 1 degree is an average temperature. It's not the at a particular point of time. So 1 degree average means a lot in terms of, a situational. Sometimes it can go to a very high 5 degree more at a given point of time. So 1 degree average is a very, very, very significant thing. So kindly note this. Now, this is one point, that means this temperature. And then another important thing, in the last decade, if you see, some of the warmest years of the century are recorded in the last only 10 years. 2009 was a record year, 2010 was also a record year, globally as well as in India also. So this is definitely a ominous trend that definitely, now coming to impact on agriculture. What actually, these are all, let me again caution you, most of the impact on agriculture so far, we are studying both a mixture of modeling and experimentation. Modeling is to tell us what is going to happen in 2050, 2070, 2080, when none of us will live. And actual experimentation is by conducting experimentation by temperature tunnels and all, actually what is happening now. So so many of these studies are actually, these are projections based on if temperature increases by 3 degrees, what will happen to the crop? So there is a big if in that. If it doesn't happen, nothing will happen. So this is all. So based on the models which Dr. Sanjay has just now mentioned, assuming that there will be 4 degree increase in temperature by 2100, or 2 degree by 2030, or 3 degree by 20, whatever based on that, most of the cereal crops, there will be decrease in yield. And in case of cereal crops, the decrease can be as low as 10 to as high as 40, depending on, the region, depending on the crop and all, because we cannot give a single figure in a country like India. But generally what we found from these studies is every 1 degree increase in temperature, the yield of major food crops will decrease by as much as 3 to 7. It can be 4, 5, depending on the crop again. But much greater loss expected in Rabi compared to Kharif, because Rabi is very sensitive to temperature. And in our temperature is the most issue. In fact, in climate change, we need not bother anything else except temperature. As far as agriculture is concerned, that is the most important, because temperature is something which you cannot easily moderate by anything. If there is drought, you can, do some relief and all, at least next year. But temperature means damage is caused, because if the temperature is very high during flowering, the flowers don't pollinate, there will be no seed setting, nothing can be done. So whereas irrigation is, temperature is different. Then another important thing is the length of growing period is likely to decrease. What is happening when there is a temperature increase, the crop matures faster. It respires more, it matures faster. So instead of 180 days for a crop to take its full maturity, it will complete by 160 days. As a result, what will happen? It will produce less yield. That is one major impact likely to be. Then of course the climate extremes are going to increase, and that will have a very significant impact. Now I have just in one slide, entire impacts on agriculture are summarized. For example, in crops, what is going to happen in livestock, fishery, poultry? In crops, mostly the Kharif crops got impacted more by rainfall than while the Rabi crops more by minimum temperature, not the average temperature. It is the minimum temperature which is important, because the minimum temperature comes during night time, early morning around 5 o'clock. Now at that time, wheat, for example, if you take, it requires a minimum chilling for it to form grain. And if that chilling doesn't come and if it remains continuously high, it doesn't fill the grains. So that is very dangerous. That is why the minimum temperature, if it is more continuously, it will affect the crops, mustard, wheat, etc. Whereas in Kharif season, across the country, it is the rainfall which is more critical than temperature. Whereas wheat is likely to be negatively impacted in Rabi due to terminal heat stress. That means when the grain filling starts, at that time if the minimum temperature is more, it will be impacted. Rice in IGP, that is Indo-Gangetic Plains, will be impacted both by temperature and water available, because rice is a Kharif crop basically, also in Rabi, in Boro rice in Bengal and all. But there are some crops that are likely to be benefited, even in India. These are groundnut, soybean and coconut. So far, our studies show in ICR that rice, most of our modeling studies show that legume crops are actually going to be benefited, because they respond to the CO2 better, and they will benefit from high CO2, and little increase in temperature will not cause much damage in these crops. But in livestock, milk yield is likely to be reduced, especially during heat wave, because there is something like thermal humidity index I will show you. And then in case of fish, the change in breeding season, when the marine sea surface temperature increases, the breeding season is going to change. And of course on the poultry, backyard poultry is not going to impact much, but commercial poultry is already affected. I will show you some slides. And then of course more opportunities for rainwater harvesting due to high intensity rainfall, but at the same time you will also have more loss of soil because of greater erosion. So plus minus, in everything there will be some plus, there will be some minus. Now in wheat crop, for example, our studies show that by 2030 there will be something like about 6 to 7% reduction in yield. Provided, please do not take this as provided we just sit without doing anything. Stop research, just do business as usual. But no country will do that. We will always adopt. We are already breeding varieties. We are already changing management practices. So we might see that the 7% doesn't happen. In fact, we may even gain little more. So let us, think this way, that many of the scenarios, are scary, because they assume that these things will just remain static. It's never happened like that, because things we always try to adapt. Human beings adapt, crops also adapt. And but one major irritation is that in Indo-Gangetic Plains particularly, the haze, a lot of brick industries, lot of pollution of automobiles and all. We have now recorded there is a significant decrease in this solar radiation, net radiation, which is very, very significant. Of course, it is not because the solar radiation in the sun, in the atmosphere, is much more than the plant actually really require. So we are not still hitting that lower limit that photosynthesis is going to be affected, but it is a fact that the net radiation in the Indo-Gangetic Plains during winter especially is actually slowly decreasing. And it could be due to smoke or fog or whatever, because of brick industries, because of crop residue burning, because of increased automobile use, whatever may be the reason. We have to see that. But that is one important thing. So scientifically we have shown that if there is reduction in radiation, definitely it is going to impact the crop yield. This is one important thing. In fact, this is not talked at all. Mostly we talk about rainfall, temperature, but this is another important issue. Photosynthesis requires radiation, and that is very important. But if you assume that the temperature is going to increase, then we require more water to produce same yield. This is the study we showed. In case of wheat, we have worked in different states. What is going to be the additional water you require for growing same wheat crop and getting the same yield, in case there is a increase in 1 degree temperature? Oh, this is actually A to B scenario. And of course, by 2020, how many cubic meters water requires, and by 2050, how much water you require in each state for each crop. So this means we have to plan our irrigation systems more efficiently, use water more judiciously, use micro irrigation systems. And so there are ways of doing, but broadly this is a message. Then in case of groundnut, I tell you that this is what, in groundnut, whatever scenario you take, A21, 2020, 2050, all the scenarios show that groundnut crop is going to be benefited. Soybean is benefited. The apple crop is not receiving the chilling temperature, because apple crop requires some minimum temperature for the fruit to ripen. As a result, now the farmers are actually shifting to higher elevations. This is very clear, the chilling unit and the yields. The yields are going down in the same place. The farmers are clearing the jungle or the hills on the top and then shifting to higher and higher. And those are actually earlier pasture land. They were actually buggy lands, So they're actually affecting the livestock. Some clashes are coming now because they are all common lands used by the shepherds to feed their cattle. The apple people are moving up, and where the apples were grown earlier, now maize crop is coming. So this is a very, very clear impact of climate change as far as Himachal Pradesh is concerned. Now, a mango. In case of mango, actually we are again seeing mango crop is very, very sensitive to temperature. Now, earlier, mango crop, November, around October, November, flowering and goes on up to fruit, and then March, April, we get the fruits. But last few years, we are seeing double flowering. First flowering, and again, because of temperature rise, again double flowering. As a result, the first formed fruits don't actually develop to the size. A lot of energy goes to the flowers which are formed next time. So overall, again, you lose the yield. You don't get timely fruits to the market. Once the farmer doesn't get the timely fruits in the market, then you will not get the good price. So these are all the impacts on the mango. Now, in case of animals, the milk production is totally linked to the animal's comfort. Now, this animal comfort is measured in terms of temperature humidity index. Now, India, we have divided into various temperature THI zones, and you will see that the coastal areas are very, very in a high level. And now in these areas, whenever there is a heat wave, when there is already a THI of 70, if there is another 5 degree, there will be drastic reduction in the milk yield. Whereas in the low THI, even if there is some increase, the impact will not be much. But broadly, we have actually put the animals in a heat chamber. We have actually, this is an experimental results, that is not a simulation. In NDRA, we have put the animals in a discomfort and then seen the milk yield, what is happening to the milk yield. And we have seen when the THI increases, the milk yield sharply declines, which means that unless we change the shelter of animals and provide them more comfort, unlike plants, animals are not going to be easily adapted to the temperature changes as easy as the plants, because animals like us, they are also, the temperature is controlled. I mean, it's not, it cannot like snakes, and it's not a cold blood, they are all warm blood. So they have to provide some degree of comfort in order to produce milk. They will survive. Survival is one thing, but we are not just happy with the survival of an animal, but we need milk also. When you want milk, then we have to provide the comfort. In case of marine fish, what is happening? See, there are some fish called oil sardine, which is the most valuable fish in our country. This sardine has been, traditionally, it is a very big catch in West Coast. But in the last 20 years, it is declining in the West Coast and more is coming in the East Coast. And this was actually attributed to a slight difference in the sea surface temperature between the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So the temperature increase is actually, it's a very complicated slide. The temperature increase is affecting the reproductive behavior, spawning. So the season is changing, and the catch is also now, the catch actually, if you see the total 12-month catch, it is coming more in some months, decreasing the traditional months because of the temperature. So the catch is going to change, reasons of the fishing is also going to change. This is one thing. Now poultry, the commercial poultry in 2003, poultry industry is one of the most organized, intelligent people in our country. If there is any private industry in agriculture, which is the most wise people is the poultry. And they have very quickly adopted. 2003, they have learned the lesson. 2003, in one state alone, 20 lakh birds. In every state, 2004, there was a huge loss. The commercial poultry industry suffered heavily during 2003, 4, 5, 6. And 7, 8, 9, 10, they have quietly adopted. They have improved the foggers. They have put the foggers to cooling. Whenever they have sensors now, whenever the temperature rises below a limit, the fogging takes place, and most of the medium to high investment industries have now already adopted without government intervention. So in case of horticulture, you will see, God has given us this variability in our country. You look at this 2004 event in cold wave in Punjab, you see in the same orchard, mango died totally, custard apple was surviving happily. So we have this biodiversity, we have the germplasm, that if there is a cold wave, if there is a frost damage, still there are some plants which will give us, which India has this unique biodiversity which many countries don't have. Compared to the frost, again this is a frost damage in 2004. We have documented this cold wave impact in 2004. A book is there, anybody interested we can give you. We have actually documented in each crop what actually has happened. Cold wave means when the temperature goes below degree, so water actually freezes like ice and it damages the leaves, fruits, so there is a huge damage. And in fact, we are working on a frost alarm, like, that if the temperature is dropping below 2 or it is approaching 1, we are going to put a sensor in the field, and that bell will ring, and that bell will ring in the farmer's cell phone in the home. So if he can know that next 2-3 hours he has to take some measure, then he can go and burn some trash. If you just burn some trash, you can raise temperature by 2 degrees and you can save your crop. So this is the thinking we are now making, how to actually save, because we have to give him some advance notice. Now, what is that we can do? These are all the impacts. What we call as adaptation mitigation. So we can develop crops and varieties that fit into the new systems, and varieties with change duration, varieties which can tolerate high temperature and coastal salinity, and then varieties which respond to high CO2, etc. Now, because some of you must be also working in biodiversity, maybe you may be writing also on biodiversity. Actually, this germplasm is it plays a very crucial role in climate change adaptation. See, many of our germplasm in the past we must have collected, and they must have had some unique traits for temperature tolerance up to 40-50 degrees. But because they were not much used for yield, we must have discarded them, or we must have just ignored them. Now is the time to look at the gene banks again freshly and see what are those varieties or what are the germplasm which are having these unique traits, and use them as parents in the breeding program. This is what actually ICAR is planning. Globally, this is the strategy which is being taken. This is what is called climate analogs. There is a big science that in the world as a whole today, we are now seeing what is the country which is having high temperature, which is projected for India in 2050. Right now today, there are some countries in the world which are having 3 degrees more than today's India's temperature right now in Africa. And we have to see what those people are doing there. Can we borrow that knowledge or germplasm, and so that in 2050, in case if temperature changes, we will be ready in our country. I mean, that is the kind of thinking globally happening. That is called science of climate analogs. Then, of course, in case of wheat, again I said that even with 3-degree rise, we can still manage. For example, this is the impact, and suppose if the current same variety you use with little better management, you will not make much difference. But with improved variety, with the current improved variety, which will escape the terminal heat stress, which will mature little early. Then improved variety and altered management, improved variety and improved management, and managing soil, water, biodiversity, so that you will have. So that means, we can even take advantage of the climate change, take advantage of the high CO2 and little bit high temperature, provided we have the technological tools in our hand. Same is the technology of so-called conservation agriculture, zero tillage. You must have heard a lot about Indo-Gangetic plains. We are promoting in a big way now. The raised bed planting, zero tillage, and all these things also help the crop to cope with flooding, high rainfall flooding, and also drought. And in rice, for example, you can see with better water management, better nutrient management, better cultural practices, we can reduce the emission of methane by 30%. I mean, this we have seen methane, but this can happen to nitrous oxide also. So mitigation also is possible even with current management. Now, this is another slide on rice, that what is going to happen to the grain yield if we do irrigation, if we do organic matter application, if you apply nitrogen. So there are various options we have tested, In case of 1 degree, 2 degree inches, can we do something? Can we ameliorate this change in different crops? One example is the SRI, or the system of rice intensification, which has been shown to save water, and especially in areas which have less. We are also conducting lots of awareness programs to farmers, on what is this climate change is all about, what it will have impact on the crops, what they can do with their own wherewithal. He cannot do breeding, but he can do some management practices which will to some extent moderate the impact of droughts, moderate the impact of heavy rainfall. For example, simple upkeep of drains. In Bihar, in Andhra Pradesh, let me tell you one good example. In 2009, there was a huge drought in Andhra Pradesh, in Mahabubnagar and Raichur district, Karnataka, up to September. And in September, suddenly there was a 135 millimeter rainfall one day, again 60 second day. So Kurnool, Raichur, the entire area was actually damaged heavily. Lot of loss of life, which is not in the down to earth, but that is more significant than what is reported. Now, during that time, the Raichur, Mahabubnagar, these are all part of Telangana region of erstwhile Telangana Nizam, and they were all known for droughts. And historically, in the entire Telangana region, all the drains, all the drought relief, the entire machinery, the entire agriculture machinery, revenue machinery, they are all trained to face drought, not flood. So the entire people training, the tahsildar, the block officer, their manuals also, it is all about drought. So in those regions, when the flood came, when about flood also unprecedented, even the Sri Salem barrage was about to break and luckily they saved. So when the flood came, they were not prepared actually. They don't know what to do because the manual of that district doesn't say how to manage a 200 millimeter rainfall happen single day. So the lot of crop damage, lot of sand casting. So now of course even a traditionally drought prone district has to be taught how to cope with flood. This is the lesson. Badmer, for example, Rajasthan, 2006. So this is the thing. There also people have to be trained. The collector, the JDA, they have to be drilled, how to manage extreme rainfall, revenue, cattle, all these things, how to save them, how to do that. This is what actually, we are actually planning to conduct some training programs for the revenue people also, for the agriculture people already we are doing, because the entire machinery has to move in a very short time. And let me tell you, share with you, in fact, CSC also, this is an information, based on a parliamentary committee recommendation in 2009, we have brought out, ICAR has brought out district level contingency plans for all the 500 districts. We have completed about 300 now, remaining 200 we will complete by March, at least by December 2012. What we did here is, for each district, we have given what are the crops grown in the district, and in case of delay in monsoon by 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, what the farmer should do, what the department officials should do, what crops they should change, what variety they should change, what management practices they should change, what irrigation they should practice. So the entire district information we have given for all the, we have targeted about 572 districts which are rural districts, because urban districts, Delhi and all, Bombay, we have limited, they don't need. So 570 rural districts, we have completed about 300 now, because it's a very big task. We are involving about 600 scientists across the country. For the last 2 years, we are on the job, and 250 are already in the website of Ministry of Agriculture. Remaining are with CRIDA, we are working on revising them, re-revising them. So this actually, we feel that in the next few years, whenever there is an extreme weather event, whenever there is a drought or flood, this manual will be able to help the district officials to actually plan, to take immediately proactive action. But we realize now, unless there is a, we gave one suggestion also. Suppose, a farmer needs a change of crop and variety. Now at the last moment, nth hour, he cannot, the agriculture department cannot arrange that seed. So therefore, what we suggest in traditionally drought prone districts, we have identified about 100 of them. Every year, the government should store the normally sown crop plus one contingency crop. Both seeds should be sown in some seed hubs, and in case there is a drought, use this seed. If there is no drought, dispose the seed as a grain in the market, and if there is a difference in the price, the government should bear this. Unless you take some steps like that, we keep on talking, this paper will remain on the paper only, they will never become a reality. Now, under 2 minutes, I will take on this new initiative ICAR has taken on the climate resilient agriculture. It's a very big scheme at a cost of 350 crores and 200 crores last year and 150 crores this year. This is a very, across the country, many institutions are involved, and this is our endeavor to see that in another 15-20 years, we will be able to cope with climate variability and complete and also steadily increase our food production, because our population is not going to stabilize until 2060 or so. So till such time, we have to increase our food production. Otherwise, this year, the entire wholesale price of food grains is actually driving the inflation. So therefore, food prices, food production cannot be compromised at any cost, whatever may happen to other sectors. Therefore, we have to work on climate resilient agriculture, and that is why this mega scheme has been founded by the Government of India. In fact, it was government which forced us to take this scheme. And in this, there are 3 aspects. One is the strategic research, then is technology demonstration, third is capacity building. And strategic research, actually, this is the objectives: enhance resilience of Indian agriculture, covering crops, livestock and fisheries to climate variability, and then demonstrate site-specific technology already available to the farmers' fields, and capacity of scientists as well as the farmers too. Now, these are the institutions. There are many more, but I just put some key institutions. We have divided the work according to institution-wise. For example, we are working on rain-fed crops and soil and water management. IRA is working on irrigated crops and they are monitoring the greenhouse gases. IAH are working on horticulture crops, engineering, energy efficiency, machinery, Bhopal, NDRI on livestock and dairy, CMFRA and fisheries. So like that, and one institute in Shillong who are addressing all aspects of Northeast and 7 states. So this is how the work is divided. And this is the kind of the state-of-the-art facilities we are now putting up. Some are already in place to expose the plants to high CO2, high temperature at control level, and grow them up to even harvest under controlled conditions, also in the field. And in the field, you will see the right side on the top side, that is actually infrared heaters to heat the complete field, because heating a open air is very tough. So we are actually putting that kind of infrastructure so that you can heat the field 3 degree, 2 degree, whatever you want, and see what is going to the impact on the crops, which are the varieties which can take that kind of stress. And then the second thing is, but farmers cannot wait for 10 years by the time the results come. So we have to give them something right now. So for this, what we did is we have identified about 100 most vulnerable districts for the climate, be it drought or flood or heat wave or cold wave or frost or coastal inundation. So in these districts, what we did, we actually identified the districts, and in these districts, we through the KVKs, we are organizing demonstration to the farmer how to cope with existing climate variability. Forget about 2050-70. Right now, Bihar last year, you will see actually there was a drought almost for the early part, 15 districts. Another 14 districts were actually under severe flood in the same year, this year itself. So we were every day giving messages about drought, and suddenly one day we were asked to give on flood. So now, therefore, we have collected those districts which are having flood and drought simultaneously, only flood, only drought, cyclone, then like Ayla in 24 Parganas, we have taken 24 Parganas also. And then what we are doing, we have divided the demonstration into 4 modules. One is the natural resource modules, which takes care of the supplemental irrigation, soil water management, tillage, etc. Crop module, livestock module, and institutional module like seed bank, custom hiring center, etc., etc. And then we have launched this program out of 100, 62 districts already we have launched. And in fact, I would request all of you, I would invite those Indian journalists to visit these villages and see what is actually happening, what farmers are feeling, whether our efforts in demonstrating the climate resilient technologies, are they liking, what is their reaction, what do they want further. In fact, I will give the address of some of the most successful districts and villages, and in each district we have taken a group of 3 to 4 villages where we are concentrating all efforts in the first year, and next plan it will be further enhanced to more districts and more villages. But right now there is already a good impact, and this is how the program is launched in each village. We have formed a climate risk management committee in the village with Sarpanch and other people, and they will actually decide what we will do, the village of the baseline of the village and all, and based on that village vulnerability, whether that village is regularly suffering from droughts or floods, accordingly we will plan our interventions, and those interventions are implemented by the village committee itself rather than the scientists or the KVK is only facilitating agency. And this is how the interventions are being planned. This is in Nimki in West Bengal, Ayla. This is a technology for Ayla, sudden rainfall. This was actually demonstrated during 2008, and now we are actually mainstreaming in that entire village. If there is another Ayla, then how the village should be able to cope, how the loss can be damaged. You can't stop Ayla, but you can only minimize the damage by this kind of drainage structures. Then this program has been very well received by the media also. This is the local media mostly, because these are all done in villages, so you don't find a big English dailies covering, but the local district level and dailies, they have a lot of coverage is there. And we have website also. This is the website. Those of you who want to follow this project in future, how it is progressing, look at this website. You can, www.nicra.in, ICR-nicra.in, and you can write to us. We will provide you the addresses, places where you can visit, interact with the farmers, interact with the department officials, and take their feedback, and again let us know actually whether we are going in the right direction or not. So this is all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.